Hello, this is lesson 3.1, fractions and decimals. So first divide your paper into fourths, and when you're ready to continue, press play. So please pause now. Okay, on the upper left corner, I want you to write this chart here. And these are common fraction and decimal equivalents that you should really memorize if you haven't done so already. So go ahead and write them. And on the bottom here, I've wrote that all fractions are either terminating or repeating decimals. So what that means is a terminating decimal is a decimal that ends. So like 0.75, there's no number after this 5, so that means it terminates. It's terminating decimal. And then a repeating decimal is one that has a repeating bar like these two here, 0.3 repeating, 0.6 repeating. So that means every fraction that you're going to be changing into a decimal will always be either terminating or repeating. So pause the video so you can finish copying this down, and when you're ready to continue, press play. Please pause now. On the right side of your notes, I want you to copy down these three problems and notice that I skipped some space between 2 and 3 and a little bit between 1 and 2. Pause the video, and when you're ready to continue, press play. Please pause now. So let's take a look at number 1. On number 1, we have 4/25. And one way of finding the decimal for this fraction is when the denominator goes into 10 or 100 or 1,000 evenly, we can go ahead and change the fraction so that we have a power of 10 on the bottom. And in this case, 25 does go into 100. And it goes into 100 4 times. So in red, I want you to write that times 4. Okay, 25 times 4 is 100. So you do the same thing to the top. You have to multiply it by the same number. 4 times 4, and that's going to equal 16. So then we have 1600ths, and the decimal for 1600ths is just 0.16 because the 1 here is in the tenths place, and the 6 is in the hundredths place. So it's 1600ths. Now let's take a look at 3/16. Okay, for 3/16, 16 does not go into 100 evenly or even 1,000 evenly, so I tell kids that we're going to do the in and out method. So with your red pen, I want you to write in and out next to that fraction. So we're going to do some dividing, and we're going to have to write kind of small because it does take up room for this problem. You're going to write 3 on the inside, 16 on the outside. Okay, we'll put a decimal point after 3, make it a 30. 16 goes into 30 one time. Okay, 1 times 16 is 16. I'm going to, again, try to write as small as you can. I'm going to try with this pen here. Now that's 140. 16 goes into 140 8 times. 8 times 16 is 128. Again, trying to write small. Okay, I get remainder 12. I bring down another 0. Now I have 120. 16 goes into 127 times. That's 112. Then subtract, and that's going to be remainder 8. And then another 0. You just keep dividing. Don't round. 16 goes into 80 5 times. And 5 times 16 is 80. Okay. So then I'm going to put a 0 in front of the decimal point. My decimal is 0.1875. All right? Now let's take a look at number 3. When we have -5/6, we're also going to use the in and out method. So with your red pen, please write in and out. And it looks like I'm running out of room, so I'm going to try to squeeze it in over here. Okay, so 5 is going to go on the inside and 6 is going to go on the out. And notice that there's a negative sign in front. So that negative is going to come out in the front of our decimal. I'm going to put 0 and then put a decimal point. Here we go. 6 goes into 58 times. 8 times 6 is 48. And then you get a remainder 2. Okay, I'm going to try to write small. 6 goes into 23 times. Okay, we get 18. I get a remainder 2 again. And notice that it's going to be 20 again. So 6 goes into 23 times, and I've run out of room, sorry. Dot, dot, dot. So I know it's going to keep being 3 after that. When you write this as a repeating decimal, you're going to write -0 0.8, and you only write 1 3. You're not going to write 2 3s. And then you put the repeating bar over the 3. Okay, do not use 2 3s, just use 1 3 because that's the digit that's repeating. Okay, so now we're on the bottom left. So I want you to go ahead and copy what you see on your screen onto your paper. Pause the video, and when you're ready to continue, press play. Please pause now. Okay, so here for number 4, we're going to compare a fraction to a decimal. And when you have a fraction and a decimal, the easiest way I think to do it is to make this fraction in decimal form. Put it in decimal form, and then it's easier to compare decimals to each other than it is to compare fractions to each other. So when I look at this fraction, I notice that the denominator is 20. And I could do the in and out method, but because 20 goes into 100 evenly, I'm going to make this fraction out of 100. Okay, so I'm going to put 100 down here. All right, and then 20 times 5 is going to give me 100. So then 70 times 5 is going to be 85. So that fraction is 85 hundredths. Now the reason why I did that is because I can easily make 85 hundredths a decimal. It's going to be 0.85. Okay, and now I can compare it to 0.87. And it's clear to see that 0.87 is greater than. So we're going to put the less than symbol in the middle, and we're going to box our answer. Okay? Now let's take a look at number 5. On number 5, we're going to compare these two fractions to see which one is greater. And in this case, you could make them both decimals, but because they're both fractions, I would probably leave them as fractions. And you can do the cross product property, which means that we just multiply the numbers diagonally from each other. This is a kind of a shortcut way of doing it, and some people call this the butterfly method. And so these two numbers here, we're going to multiply them, but that negative that's in front of the fraction, I just put it on top, okay? It always goes to the top number. So 12 times negative 7 is negative 84. So I'm going to have you guys write that in red, negative 84. And then 15 times negative 5 is negative 75. So what you're going to do is compare those two numbers that you got on the top. And remember, you're now comparing negative numbers. So here, negative 75 is greater than negative 84. So again, this one is also, the answer is also less than. So I'll write less than here and box it. And that's all for your notes. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.